All right, you know it's basketball season when we tap on our boy Jovan Buha to stop into the Late Night Late Show studios and chop it up with us. Jovan, I hope you had a good summer. I hope you were well rested, spent some time with the family, because it's back to work, baby. It's time. The grind is now. I hope you kissed your lady goodbye and said farewell to the mom and pops, whoever, bro, because from here on out, we got training camp next week. And we know you're going to be in the building. We know you're going to be there from Media Day. Jovan Buha, before we get started, baby, and talking about the Lakers 23-24 NBA season. How you doing, man?
I'm doing well. Got my voice back. I was sick for a couple weeks. It's been a rough month for me health-wise, but I'm ready to go. Hey, we're starting on Thursday. Darvin Ham and Rob Pelinka are addressing the media for the first time. They're doing it a few days before Media Day on Monday, so we got a couple days to go, and I'm ready.
We are locked in. We can't wait to get started, man. I mean, we got a few new faces jumping into the building, but I think the biggest thing with our Lakers right now is just making sure that we are going in and out of this training camp and preseason completely healthy. And that always starts now with the annual tradition of the LeBron James mini camp. We saw footage, we saw glimpses, we saw phone video capturing of a bunch of Lakers players walking out of the building. I guess first and foremost, Jovan, see folks online talking about that was down in the San Diego State University's basketball facilities. But just what do you know? Who was all involved in the LeBron mini camp this year? Were coaches there? I think we saw Coach Darvin Ham in the building. Just what do you know from the LeBron mini camp that just wrapped up?
Yeah, so it's always just players and coaches. In previous iterations, it's not even been the head coach, because technically the head coach isn't allowed to be interacting with the players until the season starts. There's kind of a weird moratorium with that. I haven't gotten a lot of details yet in terms of like who's been a standout, but I mean, going back a couple years ago, I remember hearing the buzz on Austin Reeves, and it was someone who we hadn't heard much about, and he signed a two-way contract late in the summer, and then all of a sudden gets promoted to the regular roster when they had been planning on having an open roster spot. So I think I'm trying to get some intel. I should have a better answer tomorrow or Wednesday for you. Unfortunately, not right now on the spot, but it's always like, I mean, this is really where the season starts for them. And again, kind of going back a couple years now. I mean, first you had the championship run and just the good vibes and that mini camp setting the tone back then. But I think you've seen this now become a thing that other teams have also started to copy. So I still in the information gathering part with the mini camp, but again, we're talking to Darvin and Rob on Thursday, so maybe we'll glean some more information then as well.
The info gathering stage. I love it because it does roll in like this, right? Hell, in 12 hours, 24 hours, you could get the whole update of who stood out. Hopefully, we get some Max Christie love going down.
I'm sure we will.
This camp.
I'm sure we will.
So Jovan, obviously Christian Wood was a huge signing for the Lakers, obviously, after a very successful offseason, I would say. And I think most people would say, a bunch of great free agents, a bunch of new contracts that were given out to some existing players. And overall, I'd say it was a very successful offseason. Now with Christian Wood kind of on the roster, he's the final signing, got him on a really good deal. Who do you think on the roster currently benefits the most from him being here? And what can we expect from Christian Wood in his role and where he would fit on this team?
Well, I think Anthony Davis benefits the most from having Christian Wood on this roster. We know now for years Anthony Davis has preferred to play the 4. He's embraced playing the 5 more in recent seasons. 2 seasons ago, played about 76% of his minutes at the 5, according to Cleaning the Glass. And then this past season, played 99% of his minutes, was essentially a full-time 5. But I think with that comes more of a physical toll. And I think AD has yearned for that 2019-20, 2020-21 model of 2 bigs. That first season, JaVale McGee and Dwight Howard. The second season, Marc Gasol, Montrezl Harrell, and Andre Drummond. I do think that Christian Wood and Jackson Hayes are a little bit different than some of those, previous versions of Laker lineups and two big looks. But I think for AD, just having another guy who can space the floor, block some shots. We know he's not a plus defender, but I think playing next to AD can help him and playing within the Lakers system. And then honestly, for me, I think Christian Wood benefits from this signing and this situation arguably the most, where this is the best team he's ever played on. And I think this is probably the proper role for him, which will be the backup five who will also spend some time with AD in two big lineups. And I also think when AD is, we know he's going to miss 15 to 25 games at some point in the season. Christian Wood can step in then and get those looks and get that usage that he's used to in his previous stops. So for me, it's a win-win where he's arguably the best big man they've had in terms of a guy who can step into AD's shoes and do a lot of the same things in a shorter period of time. And I look back at that, that stretch last year when Thomas Bryant stepped up, and all of a sudden Thomas Bryant wasn't playing that much. AD goes down, he becomes a starting center, and he's putting up 20 points a night, and the Lakers are hovering around 500 or even better for certain portions of that stretch. So I think Christian Wood can do that and then some. He's a much more skilled offensive player and just talented player in comparison to a Thomas Bryant. So I look at AD just not having to take that physical toll as much at the five, and then I also look at Christian Wood being set up for success in probably the best situation he's been in so far in his career.
Darvin making those late night phone calls. Clearly, he knows the words to say, man. Yeah. Talk about the midnight storm, right? Being 103 on the call. I mean, Ham, Coach Ham, he has proven that players love him, right? Like they, from their time together in Milwaukee, and just all the players that, seem to come out and say how much they respect and appreciate, the work that they put in together. I think Darvin Ham has definitely shown that he is a people's coach, or he's a player's coach. And now it's just kind of all about seeing how he develops in year two. He's got a lot more at his disposal this year, Jovan, from last year. I mean, I'm not even going, we're not going to do it. I've sworn off names to never speak of again on this podcast about players who are no longer in purple and gold. We wish them great success, but never again will we speak ill or positive about them. But now in comes Taurean Prince, Jackson Hayes, Gabe Vincent, Cam Reddish, Christian Wood, right? New deals for Anthony Davis, Rui Hachimura, Austin Reeves, D'Angelo Russell, Jared Vanderbilt. You look at this roster, man, it almost feels like the 2K settings when you go and rotate through those auto lineups. You want a three-point shooting team? Yep, there you go. You want a big team? Lakers got a couple of different rotations that can throw out now. You have the depth chart pegged with the starters as Russell, Reeves, Hachimura, James, and Davis. Obviously, LeBron and AD, you can write those in permanent marker. Austin Reeves, there's no reason why he would not be a starter going into this season. Wanted to know some of the interesting training camp rotation battles do you think that you're most looking forward to this upcoming training camp?
So for me, there are three. I look at two of those starting spots. One being D'Angelo Russell versus Gabe Vincent. I was actually talking about this. I did a season preview pod with Nate Duncan on his Dunked On podcast, and he brought up a good point that I agree with. Of if you're looking at the pairings next to LeBron, AD, and Austin Reeves, really the two pairings that make the most sense are D'Angelo Russell and Jared Vanderbilt, and then Gabe Vincent and Rui Hachimura. And you're looking at it of kind of an offense-defense balance of, Vando is the better defender, but between him and Rui, and Gabe Vincent is the better defender between him and D'Lo. So, if you're looking at how you kind of want to slot those guys, you probably want one more defensive-minded guy in the lineup and then another offensive-minded guy. So right now, from what I've heard and just the conversations I've had around the team, it does seem like D'Lo and Rui are the two favorites for the point guard and small forward positions. But I do wonder if that ends up changing in preseason or training camp as they get out there, as you start to see the starters scrimmaging with the bench. But for me, it's D'Lo versus Gabe Vincent, and a matter of, do you want to almost look at the Russell Westbrook situation and potentially put D'Lo as, hey, like, you're not going to be as involved in the offense. You're probably more the fourth option now that Austin has ascended with Team USA and the playoffs. And it's like, do you want to be the fourth option out there behind LeBron, AD, and Austin? Or do you want to be running the show on the second unit and, maybe some more two-man game with you and LeBron, you and AD, you and Christian Wood? So I think that's going to be an interesting one of just the point guard spot. Gabe Vincent gives you better point of attack, defense. I think is a lower usage guy, so you don't have to necessarily worry about how he's going to fit in offensively. He's just going to go out there, spot up. He can come off screens. He could run pick and roll if you need him to, but he can assume a little bit more of like that Pat Beverly role of like an off guard, really a 3-and-D type point guard. Then I look at Rui Hachimura versus Vando. For me, my issue with Vando just comes down to the shooting. If he can develop into a reliable corner 3-point shooter, like, by all means, go start Vando. But I just think if with the way that teams defended him in the playoffs and really even later in the regular season, it's just tricky, especially when you have AD and LeBron coming off the shooting seasons that they both had. I just don't see how you can play 2.5 non-shooters in your front court in 2023 and 2024. Like, I just think starting Vando provide, like, yes, there's a defensive boost for sure, but I almost wonder if the offensive decrease that you're going to get with starting him over a Rui potentially, offsets any defensive value that he provides. So for me, with the way that Rui played in the playoffs, if he can replicate that aggression, that locked in night to night kind of, just production that he had, I think Rui, makes more. And Lakers obviously invested in him 3 years, $51 million.
I was going to say, the money talk. The money talk.
They backed it up. So
yeah.
Then for me, on a smaller scale, the third one I find interesting is the backup shooting guard competition between Max Christie and Cam Reddish. I would put Max Christie right now as the favorite for that, as I have in my depth chart. But Cam Reddish is a guy who, former lottery pick, a guy that, though he's bounced around, still has clearly a lot of potential, and I think has some value with certain, just that size, that athleticism, the ability to get downhill, the ability to create his own shot. Like, I see him as a guy who, if a LeBron or an AD goes out, maybe he can step up and have that type of value that a Lonnie Walker had in the past, that a Malik Monk had in the past, where those guys kind of stepped up as bench scorers and even starting scorers in certain situations. So I look at Cam versus Max as another pivot point in the rotation. But for me right now, with the buzz he had, coming off summer league, really the progress. Like, I thought Max was solid last year when he got rotation minutes, and just especially overall, and overall, I think he's a better defender than Cam Reddish, and he's certainly a better shooter and a more reliable shooter up to this point in his career. So really, from what the Lakers need from that wing spot, I think Max Christie provides it as a 3-and-D guy. So right now, I would pencil him in ahead of Cam Reddish. But again, if Cam Reddish has the tools, he was the number 1 rated high school guy in his class. Like, if he puts it together, as we've seen certain talented perimeter guys put it together with the Lakers, like, he could be a big part of the rotation. So for me, it's starting point guard, starting small forward, and that backup 2-guard spot are the 3 most interesting training camp battles.
Yeah, Lakers Nation reminds everyone often that Cam Reddish was the number 1 player in his class. And, you know my gripes about, us longing for certain players on the roster. Buddy Hield, he who shall not be named, whose name raised its ugly head once again, Jovan. I almost started saying bad words on the timeline, man. I thought we were done. We had our exorcism. And then yet, the power of Christ was not strong enough to keep Lakers fans away from a Buddy Hield trade rumor. Quickly, it was extinguished, or I guess didn't really catch much traction. But glad that, Cam Reddish has the opportunity this year to, prove it right? He's on the roster. He's going to have training camp opportunities, going to have preseason opportunities. I just, am interested to see once we get to the regular season, right? And, how Coach Ham starts working out these rotations. We just talked about the Lakers' depth all around. They are a much deeper basketball team that they've had in the past. If you get some, DMP CDs out of Cam Reddish, guys, you're just going to have to cool your titties. Like, that means Max is doing his job. And if Max is doing his job, that means the Lakers once again struck gold and their investments continue to prove out to be successful in their draft development. I can't go any further though without addressing one of the kind of the dark clouds in this little rotation. And D'Angelo Russell signed a very friendly, contract. It's a very, shall I say, movable contract at some point during the season if the Lakers choose to do so. Jovan, let's just talk about it real quick. I'm not shipping D'Lo off, brother. I can't wait to see how he does with this team. But if you look at how this roster is constructed, you look at the kind of flexibility that the Lakers are always like going into the trade deadline, do you see that D'Angelo Russell is probably their biggest trade chip this season if they decide to go that route?
Yeah. I wouldn't say he's on the trade block per se. And as you pointed out, there are restrictions in terms of when he could be traded in the season. Couldn't be right away. I believe it's December 15th is the earliest time for free agents, but I have to double check that. But what I would say with him is, as you just alluded to, like he is the most attractive trade asset that they have in terms of players and movable contracts. And I think the thing that people are going to have to remember with him, because I think like he's probably going to have a pretty good season. It wasn't like he was pretty good for the Lakers in the regular season. I think the concern internally is what does it look like in the playoffs? Because we've seen not only last year, but previously in Minnesota, where it looks good in the regular season and then come playoff time, it's just his game doesn't translate at the same level necessarily, and he becomes a defensive target. And when he's not shooting the ball as well, when he's not scoring as much, when he's not as impactful offensively, then that trade, you can live with that more in the regular season. But if teams are, he's not scoring the same or shooting the same, and then teams are going at him defensively. And Denver, like it was psychological warfare. Denver went at him publicly.
It was nasty. Yeah. It was nasty.
It was their coaching staff. It was their players. Like they made it very clear we are doing everything we can to target this guy. We're going to try and embarrass him on and off the court, and it worked. And they clearly got into his head to some extent. And he just, not only was he not the same guy, but he was basically unplayable with the way that he was shooting and just how bad he was on both ends of the floor. So for me, I think even if it's great in the regular season and he's averaging 20 points, 4 rebounds, 6 assists, and that's probably in the higher end of his averages.
Yep.
I still think you have to have a healthy level of concern of what does this look like in the playoffs? Because if you look at the regular season, he's always going to put up numbers. He's a great regular season innings eater, and I think he has a lot of value if a LeBron or an AD goes out,
which we will need.
Starting group, which he's going to help in the regular season. It's just, can he translate to the playoffs? And is it a situation where maybe you need to put Gabe Vincent in the starting. We saw the playoff run he just had, and at least there are parts of his games that I think, like the defense doesn't go away. He's not a Dennis level guy, but I think he's certainly better than D'Lo on that end. So for me, I think it's going to be kind of a similar situation to. I don't want to compare it to the Westbrook situation because I think that was a 1-on-1, but I do think the trade deadline, there's going to be D'Lo rumors. He's going to be the guy that the Lakers are shopping, and I would, not be surprised by any means if he ends up getting moved around the trade deadline for whatever need the Lakers have, whether that's another big man, whether that's another wing, whether that's just a better guard that they have more confidence in terms of how that player will translate in a playoff setting. But for the Lakers, it's all about winning a championship next year. It's not about yes, you want to be healthy. Yes, you want to have the best seed possible, but you really need to structure your team around what are the 8 guys we can trust in a playoff run to a championship. And I don't think I think there are more questions than answers right now with D'Lo, and I don't think you're going to get those answers in the regular season. You really would have to bet on, let's just keep him through the year and let's see what he looks like in the playoffs. But are you willing to take that chance of, if he's the same guy he's been in the playoffs, you're now lowering your ceiling and potentially losing in the first or second round?
Wow. And yeah, I guess that totally happens, especially when you have insurance policies, right? I mean, you have Gabe Vincent sitting on the roster. You have Austin Reeves who can handle point guard duties. You have, of course, LeBron who can do it. So there is quite a bit of flexibility there where, like you said, things can totally change depending on the team's needs as we get a little more into the season. But so we talked a lot about our depth and a lot of our new players that'll be added, possibly new roles. But let's talk a little bit about the King here for a little bit. Entering year 21, we got LeBron, who, maybe another year older, maybe another half step slower than we've seen. But this guy's played a ton of roles since he's been on the Lakers. He's been a number one scoring option. He's been the primary playmaker and point guard in our championship season, filling in at center. He's had a lot of different roles on this team based on what was needed. But now in the roster that we have a roster that is this deep and this talented, what can we expect from LeBron's role this year, just being the caliber of player he is? And, obviously Anthony Davis, I think at this point, I think we can say bar none is the best player on the Lakers now. LeBron kind of being in that secondary option role. What can we expect his role to be now that this team is so flushed out in so many areas that they haven't been in previous seasons?
I think it's going to be pretty similar to last season, particularly after he came back from his foot injury, where you're going to see, I think it's going to be a lot, D'Lo, Austin Reeves, Gabe Vincent when he's out there, running the show more, as we saw at times last year, where particularly Austin stepped up, when LeBron was out and in the playoffs. I think you'll see them reestablish Anthony Davis as they did. As they did at the beginning of last season. Where, remember, the talk at the beginning of last year, and I wrote a couple stories on it, was like, this is the passing the baton moment with Anthony Davis, and he was carrying the offense a lot. You saw that before his foot injury in mid-December, where AD was the guy for the first time in his Lakers tenure leading the team in field goal attempts. It was the first time he was averaging more field goal attempts than LeBron. And it really felt like there was starting to be a little bit of an MVP push. Like, it was kind of like, okay, the Lakers don't have the record for it, but if the Lakers had the record, AD would be in that MVP mix. He's clearly their best player. Then he goes down, and he's never really the same offensively. Of course, defensively, has a great end to the season, helps the Lakers be a top 2 defense, helps them make the conference finals. I thought he was by far the best defender in the playoffs. But I think offensively, you're just going to see more. Like, one thing I've reported on and continue to hear is the Lakers plan on using Austin as more of a point guard. That is his natural position. That's the position he grew up playing in middle school and high school. It's his preferred position, as I spoke to him about this summer when I did my feature on him from Team USA. And like, he views himself as a point guard, as a primary ball handler. And I think the Lakers are going to give him that leash more so next season. I think D'Angelo, of course, is still going to be very involved in the offense. And then you have Gabe Vincent out there with the second unit group. And then I even think a guy like Christian Wood, who can be somewhat of a hub, especially coming off the bench. So I think the Lakers, this is as much firepower as they've had offensively, in my opinion, in the LeBron AD era. They have guys who can assume usage and ball handling, and LeBron doesn't have to do as much really until crunch time. So I think you're going to see him function more like he did last season as a big, more of a 4, setting more screens, working a bit more on the weak side, and just I think more 2-man game with him and D'Lo, him and Austin, him and AD, even sometimes kind of an inverted screen where he's screening for AD has the ball. So I think there's different things that they can do to get a little funky with it. But I think LeBron, the Lakers are going to be delicate with him and his minutes. It's year 21. He's going to be 39, and you're playing the long game here. You just got to get, like we've seen now, the blueprint is you have AD and LeBron relatively healthy, and you have a competent supporting cast. That team can win a championship. We saw it the first year. We saw it the second year until AD went down. And then I think we saw it last year, although they fell a bit short. Even then, LeBron wasn't fully healthy. And I think you get those guys back and healthy and get them to the playoffs, like they are as tough of an out as there is, when those two guys are available. So to me, it's just, you got to keep LeBron healthy and not run as much through him. And from what I've heard, that's the plan right now.
The Late Night Lake Show podcast is sponsored by Prize Picks. Prize Picks is the best legal way to play daily fantasy player props in states like California, New York, Texas, and more. You pick 2 to 5 players and an over-under on their projections, and you can win up to 10 times on any entry. The best part is you can mix players from different sports. You could take the over on LeBron combined with the under on Mahomes in the same entry. Prize Picks is the easiest way to play daily fantasy because it's just you versus the projected numbers. Just use our promo code LNLS, and any deposit you make can receive a 100% instant deposit match up to $100. So go support the brand and go win you some money. It's the best of both worlds. Again, use our promo code LNLS.
Well, I mean, whether we like it or not, this is the world that we live in, right? When we invested in this part of LeBron's career, this is the version that we're all just going to lean into, embrace. And like we said, LeBron's still a bad man when he's on and he's healthy. Two things that were just not disclosed. I think the first one was if LeBron had surgery or not. Jovan, was that disclosed at all?
That's not been disclosed.
Okay. And did AD need a procedure this offseason?
That has not been disclosed as well. I guess speculating, I would assume both had some work done this offseason, at least LeBron. But nothing has been officially disclosed yet.
Shout out Clutch Sports, the secret society, man. They got that under wraps over there.
Group.
You see it. Speaking of Anthony Davis, right? Like as Kwame said, Mr. 1A, Mr. Face of the franchise. This is squarely on his shoulders this season, right? If there was any doubt going into last year, there is no more now. Again, whether we like it or not, this is Anthony Davis's team. It rests on his and LeBron James' shoulders, but nonetheless, we saw an Anthony Davis while in stretches carrying the Lakers and battling through injuries, showing that he is still a premier defensive big in this league. One thing that still eluded him, man, is that shot. His touch from outside is just no está. And now 2020 starting to get in the rearview mirror so much, we're getting to the point where we're asking, is this just Anthony Davis's game where the outside jumper is just not something that you can look at and be like, well, that's going to be dangerous night in and night out? What do you think needs to happen for us to start seeing AD's jumper return to that form where he shot 33% from three? He shot 33% from three. We didn't ask for much. 33%. Make 1 out of every 3, brother. Yeah. And then 84% from the free throw line, which, is the killer, right? When AD's off on free throws, that just compounds the frustration. How do we get back to that glory land, Jovan?
I think that's $1 million question right there. Because for me, as I look at how the Lakers, potentially match up against other contenders in a playoff series, like that's my biggest concern is the LeBron and AD. I mean, I'll lump LeBron in there with the season he just had of 32% from 3, and then I believe around 26-27% in the playoffs. Like those two guys just have to shoot better, and those are two big differences. I think for me, and this is probably a whole other discussion, the two big thing, though I was pointing out some of the pluses with it earlier in the show. I think there are a lot of concerns with it in terms of like LeBron and AD just aren't the same players they were in 2019-20 from a physical standpoint. They're not as athletic. They're not as quick. They're not as spry. So if you somehow go back in the time machine and get those two guys athletically, then I think, a too big situation can work. But with the way that both guys have naturally aged, and for AD, I think it's been more so just lower extremity injury after lower extremity injury, and then LeBron is just father time, most minutes in NBA history, year 21. Those two guys just aren't the same physically, and then they've also regressed as shooters. And if the athleticism, I don't think is coming back. It's just, it is what it is. But if they can regain the shooting that they've shown in recent seasons for AD, the championship season for LeBron, even going back as recently as a couple seasons ago, I think that is the key for the Lakers' playoff offense being more reliable. Because right now, I think they just haven't had reliable shot making in crunch time, in kind of do or die situations of, we need to just get a bucket, and you can't just get to you can't get to the rim in crunch time. Like, there's going to be 5 bodies in there, and you're going to get an offensive foul, or you're going to kick out to a shooter. And the Lakers shooting, of course, hasn't been reliable team wide for multiple seasons now. So I think it's got to be like, can AD face up and hit a 16-footer over someone with their arm in his face? Can LeBron, hit his step back 3 in a crunch time situation? So I think LeBron, I have more confidence in him just regaining a shot. I think a lot of it had to do with his foot injury, and with him and that step back, like, a lot of that is planting, and it's about balance. And I think for him, he just never was fully right in terms of his foot and his health. But with AD, like, it's been multiple years now, and I think one of the criticisms was, that was a flash in the pan in the bubble and in that season, and he shot unsustainably, and like, that's kind of proving true. And I think if he can return to that, we see the ceiling. The Lakers can win a championship. But if he doesn't, then there are questions there. And I don't think it's a work ethic thing. Like, AD's aware of it. I think he works on his shooting in the off season. But I think the other thing I'll say though is, I think he's just got to let it fly more. If you look from his mid-range attempts, his 3-point attempts, they've all been declining over the past 3 seasons. And for him, it's just got to be like, I'm going to take 3 or 4 threes a game, and maybe I shoot 25%, but I need to inspire some fear in the defense and make them honor my shooting. Because right now it's just been like, last year I think he was 1.3 3-point attempts per game. Like, that's just way too low for him.
Not enough.
And I think he's rightfully kind of adjusted, but the adjustment has kind of been, I'm just not going to take the shots. And I think that's the wrong strategy. And if I'm the Lakers coaching staff, I'm telling him, let it fly, shoot as much as you want, and hopefully you regain that form. Because if not, I think it gets a little tricky with some of the too big stuff and just the spacing. And I think right now, based on what we've seen from them the last couple of years, AD is a 5 and LeBron is a 4. And I think their best lineups are going to be those guys at the 5 and the 4.
Kwame, you hear this? He said, "Just let it fly." So when I'm at our Sunday morning, Saturday morning runs, bro, and I'm getting my 4 threes a game up, and you're yelling at me to get in the post, I'm just letting you know, bro. I gotta strike some fear into the defenders, brother.
Hey man, I get it, and I even get it for AD as well. I totally understand. The scouting report for the Lakers for the most part, league wide, was let him shoot, like the last 2 seasons, dare him to shoot. And I expect that to somewhat hold the same this year as well. So like you said, Jovan, AD, when he gets those opportunities, he's got to just let it fly. If he sits there and he's hesitant, he's just looking to pass, it's hard to really gain that confidence, and for the defenses to gain that respect. So he's going to have to, like you said, let it fly. I'd say, 3 threes a game should probably be his goal in his head. Just let him rip and see where it lands him. And, hopefully
he just got to make one. Just one.
Honestly,
just one of the 3. That's
it's true. One of the 3, and
done,
people will be scared. So I like that. So Jovan, I just want to get your way too early take. So last year we kind of looked up and down the Lakers roster and we're like, who would be the biggest surprise for Lakers fans this season? A lot of people, I think, chose Austin Reeves, and rightfully so. Huge emergent season, great in the playoffs last year. Now we got a whole cast of new guys and, some returning guys outside of, obviously, Austin Reeves, LeBron James, Anthony Davis. Who would you say on this team is set to surprise a lot of Lakers fans this season and can really make a big splash? Your way too early prediction.
I'll give you 2 answers because my first answer is going to be Max Christie, but I feel like that's the popular answer right now of just, again, all the positive vibes coming from his summer league growth. And I will say I'll take that even further. Like, I think there's a chance that Max eventually is a closing option for this team. Like, I think if he hits his upside, I would like to see a closing backcourt of Austin Reeves and Max Christie. I think that gives you your 6. You got a guy 6'5", another guy 6'6". I think those guys can both switch across either guard spot. Max can even play up. I think against threes. Austin can play up against threes in certain matchups. So like you have a lot of positional versatility from a defensive side, but then offensively, you're going to be running your offense through LeBron and Austin. Max spotting up as a potential 38 to 40% catch and shoot 3-point guy, and then you got probably Rui and of course AD out there as well. So like I really like the potential there of an Austin Max backcourt. So for me, I'm going to say Max is the guy I got my eye on in terms of what does he look like in training camp? What is he looking like in the scrimmages? What does he look like in the preseason? I think he's someone who can really elevate the Lakers ceiling next season. And if they are a 60-win team, or if they win the conference finals and win a championship, like chances are someone had to have popped above expectation. We even saw it last year in the conference finals run. It was Rui, it was Austin. Yep. D'Lo had some big moments in the first couple rounds. Dennis had some big moments. Like you have to have your role players step up and deliver when it matters. And for them during those first couple rounds, it was several of those guys. I think Max has that potential. The other guy I'm gonna bet on, I think for next season is Taurean Prince. I look at Taurean Prince as we talked about Rui and Vando as the potential starting small forwards. I think Taurean Prince is the dark horse candidate there, where he could throw his name in the ring and potentially provide the best two-way balance of he's the best shooter of the three, not the best perimeter defender, might actually be the worst perimeter defender of the three.
Oh damn!
Especially when factoring the size that those guys. He's about 6'6". Those guys, Rui's 6'8", Vando's 6'8". So those guys can
6'19". Vando, remember Vando had a 5-inch growth spurt over the summer.
6'9", whatever. Vando's he's got the long arm. Like Vando's definitely the biggest of those three. I mean, though Rui's got Rui's pretty, although he's slimmed down. So
he's slim. He on his slim fast diet.
We got Slim Rui now. But I think Taurean, with his shooting and serviceable defensively, if he can just be average to slightly above average, like that is the type of guy that the Lakers need. So I look at the role that Troy Brown had last year, and Ken Taurean. Like I think Taurean Prince is a better player overall. Might not be as skilled. Like I think Troy. Troy grew up playing point guard as well. Like he had some more ball handling chops than he kind of showed, but I think he'd be a more reliable shooter and potentially just a more reliable player overall. So I look at Taurean as someone that, could work his way into closing lineups potentially, or could work his way even into the starting lineup. So I look at him as a guy who could play the 3 or the 4 and could be a 20 to 25 minute a night guy who the Lakers could rely on. So I'm looking at Taurean and Max as my two guys I'm kind of betting on.
And there we have it. I like it.
I just had a flashback to Troy Brown Jr. high or low lights. I don't know, man, where he would just try some just real fancy move. And it's like, what the fuck? Where did this come from, Troy? But I guess he has it in his bag. He just, needs to warm up a little bit longer before, he can get those shots to drop. Shout out, Troy. Hope he's doing well out there, man. Jovan, let's get you up out of here, man, with our last prediction. Right, Lakers season is just around the corner. Obviously, everybody in the nation has high hopes and aspirations, but taking kind of the truth serum, right? If we were to look at a best case and worst case scenario for this season, as far as regular season seeding and playoff aspirations, give us kind of heaven and hell for both scenarios.
Yeah, I think best case scenario is 1 seed in a championship. I think that's within the realm of possibility. You probably have to have LeBron and AD both play at least 65 games, which hasn't happened, I think, since the title. They might have even been below that or the title year. I mean, obviously there was fewer games overall, but
yeah,
in terms of like percentage of games played, I think they both have to be around at least 65. Austin's got to continue to grow. I think Austin showing similar growth and being that reliable number 3 guy. Potentially flipping D'Lo plus something else at the deadline to bring in, I think maybe a 3-and-D wing that can kind of close games and is the best, between kind of the the best of both worlds between Rui and Vando in terms of offense, defense, or another big, like I think, you talked about Buddy Hield earlier, but like Miles Turner is, I think Miles Turner is like, Miles Turner just fits perfectly. And it doesn't have to be like, I would say it doesn't have to be him specifically, but there are only a certain amount of guys that can do what he does. But like that type of big, not linking him to the Lakers specifically, but like I think he fits great in my opinion. So something like that, and then health, upgrading at the trade deadline, and I think they have the depth. And again, guys who can step up. Like if AD or LeBron goes out, I think this is the best group they've had in terms of guys who can just, like Austin could step up, be a 20 to 25 a night guy. D'Lo can step up and do the same thing. Christian Wood could step into the starting group and be the 18 to 20 point a night guy that he's been in several stops now. So I think they have the offensive firepower to replace a LeBron or AD for a short stretch. Of course, they're not going to win a championship without one of those guys. And I don't think they're going to be the 1 seed if either one of those guys misses a lot of time. But that to me is the best case scenario. Worst case is, I mean, I think we could go back the last couple, I guess 2021, 22.
Yeah,
that's
probably 21 was, that was not good. That was not good.
Now, this is a better roster, and it makes a lot more sense, and there's just a lot more talent and depth. So I don't think you're going to see like some of the lineups that team had or some of the struggles that team had. But if either one of LeBron or AD misses 25, 30, 35 games, that's where you start to get into like, okay, I think they drop a bit in the seeding, and it could be another situation where with the depth of the West, like I think it's going to be, that 1 to 6, 1 to 8 could be a matter of like 5 to 7 games, and missing those guys for a large portion of the season. Like, so I guess I would say worst case is they're like a play-in team and they lose in the first round. And they end up playing like a Phoenix or a Denver in round 1 and they lose. But I'm giving you like the extremes on both sides of like 1 seed championship, play in and lose in first round. But that would strictly be because of health. I don't see another scenario in which this team just doesn't have the talent or the depth to me. I'm like, my median outcome is probably like a 3 seed and then losing in the conference semifinals or conference finals. Like that's probably like the average projection for me. But I think that they're in the contender tier. They have the talent to win a championship. It's really going to come down to health. Yep. And can they find a way, in my opinion, to improve along the margins of the roster throughout the season? Because I do think there are right now a couple of holes that they're probably going to have to plug in.
What a difference a year makes, man. This
last,
has been one of the most.
What was the upside last year? It was like
right?
7 seed.
It was bleak to the deadline. It was real bleak to the deadline.
Man, it had me just overall questioning, like, who cares? Who cares about this team right now, man? But now we're here. The summer was non-gut wrenching, right? The Lakers just continued to make moves. I mean, I think the crescendo in all of this, just to kind of put a bow on this, Anthony Davis signed the largest extension in NBA history. I think it's going to average out to about $62 million a season, and God bless him. That's, hopefully, right, that translates to future production. And AD obviously has shown the world what he's capable of, even when he's not 100%. There's still not a lot of bigs that you taking over him. So hopefully this is a nice little glory run that he about to go on this season as the face of the franchise. Hopefully LeBron James, as he enters into his twilight years, never count that old man out, because he'll mess around and dunk on somebody young out here. And hopefully we can start sending him off with some prosperous more championship appearances, and hopefully we could get that number 5 for him, and that big one, passing the Celtics this season, baby. So we're on the quest for number 18, and Laker Nation, we will be here all along the way. Jovan, thank you so much for rocking with us today, my brother.
Thank you.
Always a pleasure having you as a friend of the show, man, and we can't wait to continue to chop it up with you as the season unfolds.
Yes, sir.
All right, y'all. We'll catch y'all next time as our season series continues. We're going to hop over to the other side. Oh, we're going into enemy territory. We're going to talk to the head of 19 Media Group, Warren Shaw, who runs a Celtics organization and production. So we're going to get into that, but stay tuned. He's a great follow, but we'll catch y'all next time. Appreciate y'all rocking with Late Night Lake Show. Make sure you're following if you're not already, wherever you get your hashtag good content. For Kwame, it's Ricky. We out. Peace.